Welcome back to the Friday Council podcast. Today is Friday, the 10th of Feb, 2023. We're in episode 23 today. And Daniel.
Epic. My idea today.
Yeah, your idea. Do you want to share with us what it is?
Consumer culture collecting, as in like collectibles, and nostalgia. It didn't really fit quite right, but yeah. So I've been revisiting for nostalgic reasons initially, but then possibly, I don't know. We'll get into the reasons why, but old games. And so I've been in the collecting and nostalgia communities online, and just like thinking about that and why I feel the drive to do it, and then why people do it in general. Off the bat, my first question for you guys to open it up is I was wondering, well, I could see a lot of the hardcore collectors online are pretty notoriously what you would call beta. They're really weeby, yes, like all of the above. That's the classic stereotype of a collector, and it holds true to the most successful collectors on YouTube.
Unless you're collecting like war memorabilia,
But you're real into it. The most into it. There's always something off about those people. They're kind of unbalanced.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And I feel like collecting, and especially nostalgia, is part of a bigger problem of at least a prolonged adolescence, and guys specifically, or just general infantilization of boys and guys through to adulthood. These guys obviously have the disposable income now to be hoarding these massive collections as a nostalgic tribute to their childhood, but there's something off about it. So what do you guys reckon? You guys aren't deep into the collecting community.
I'm not deep into any specific community. There's a couple things that I have looked at wanting to, I don't know, collect. It's one of those weird things because it's like you don't actually need it.
Yeah. Why do you want to collect them? What do you think the urge is for you?
Well, for me, I'll just put it out there. Like the interest that I'd want to collect is model airplanes, but not like war airplanes. It's specifically commercial, like
big time nerd stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I just always enjoyed planes since a young kid. For some people it's like trucks or trains, and then they might get into it like fully and become, want to be a race car driver, or if you're that way inclined, you want to drive from the North Island to the South Island every night delivering food. But I think I just like the look of it. So it's like if it's
like an art.
Yeah, it's kind of like art, and it's basically just scaled down to a, like you can view it, in your hands or on a desk or a table, but it's basically the same thing. I've seen it writing in it.
It's pretty versatile when you think about it. Art can be pretty much anything, right?
I think most collections will have an aesthetic art aspect to them.
Art is a big part of it.
Whether it's games, games will have the cover art. That's
exactly.
Art.
And do you remember? I've read an article about this, and this is super niche, I guess. Graphics cards used to come with sick art on the retail boxes. Now they don't anymore.
Someone will be collecting old
some
graphics
for
cards.
sure will, and they're probably worth heaps because that's super. That's a
first one I had.
Big money, nerd industry. People get hardcore building PCs. But they used to come with sick artwork on the box, and even sometimes on the graphics card itself of I guess oftentimes I remember anime, anime, a female characters. I don't know if anime's, but cartoon,
very on brand for nerds.
Yeah, and they were dope.
No doubt.
So that's like a form of art, and like you say, it's like a book. Don't judge a book by its cover, but we all do, right? Because if a book's got a dope cover, we're more inclined to pick it up.
It's hard. It's easy to say in hindsight now, but I can't imagine, especially in the technology phase, if it was something like that, collecting it purely for the sake of not opening it in however many years, because that it's not going to work. Well, it might work, but it's it's going to be outdated technology. So it's purely for the collection.
There's different types, I suppose. And so I was like, I don't know, for your say model plane, that's got quite niche. Would you be proud showing? Would it be just for you, or would you be proud showing it off as part of the reason for collecting? Because for my games, that's quite a broad, like everyone played games as a kid. So part of what I like about the collection or collecting them is like showing off and being, and if I'm honest, being like
flexing.
Yeah, kind of like a flex. Like, look, I own this like precious like copy, you know?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think it's one of those things people can just appreciate, even if they're not into it.
Yeah.
This like example though, for me, it might be a thing like I want to travel on XYZ airline, so then I'll collect that plane. Like I wouldn't want to. Well, I mean, I would, to be fair, but that would probably be like the primary reason, unless it was just a cool like collector's edition or like specific plane. For example, like the New Zealand one when they had the Lord of the Rings. Like those things don't come by all the time. But like if you're traveling the world, it's like, well, here's a memento for this airline that I traveled on.
What do you guys thoughts about just collecting, going way back into, thinking evolutionarily on a massive time scale? I think it makes it feel like safe in some way.
It's always been a thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that ties in with like religion, spirituality, music, whatever. Like music's a form of art, but it's just one of those things that's like deeply ingrained, it seems, in humans that it's a form of again,
it's a form of safety, I suppose.
Yes, safety could be part of it, but I think it's like just that part of your brain that you can't really explain why you're drawn to these things, but because that's the way I think about it. I'm like, I think about it super logically. I'm like, what's the point of like this? But I'm still like drawn to it. But and then it's like, so it's real conflicting. I'm like, there's no like real purpose to this, but my brain is quite attracted to it. So and again, they say it's just sort of, I think it ties in with whatever that's spirituality, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Humans seem to be drawn towards art of all forms, say like music, sitting in front of a fire, and I would argue as a form of art.
It has this nice aesthetic.
Tales, myths.
Yeah,
it's just humans seem to be hardwired for that shit.
In terms of if you're looking at it from the artistic perspective, it's kind of like an entryway into like your own personality. So I think it might have been Jordan Peterson saying like when you enter someone's home and what you see on their walls is kind of like
swastikas,
reflective of their personality.
My man. No, just kidding.
So it's like, well, this is just what I'm into.
I think that's actually a really good point.
That's true. I didn't think about that, and I didn't intentionally do that to put the games in a frame on my hallway.
So I can build on that. I think
that makes sense.
Everyone wants to be understood. So if you have like this advertisement, like this is who I am, it like increases. You're like, so this is, you might not just want to randomly spark up a conversation, be like, oh, like I love this, but if someone comes into your house, they're like, oh wow, you've got all these airplanes on the wall, and it's like, oh, they get me, they understand me, they're showing interest in me.
It also, for me at least, it makes it's how to make a house a home kind of thing. If you fill your home with as many like physical objects that you like, it just like becomes real harmonious. Like every room is pleasant, and it's like there's nothing. You're not going to hang up an artwork that you don't like or collect and put something on a shelf that you don't like, unless you're compromising with a partner.
It's true.
I think a lot of people potentially do that. Not that they don't like it, but I mean that's the thing from Fight Club, right? Is just buying the latest couch or whatever, the latest like whatever, the Picasso painting, whatever it is, just buying it for the sake of buying it because it seems like this is what I'm meant to do. So again, it wouldn't be that they don't like it, it's just they don't really like it, but they're like, I think I should do this because like everyone kind of does this, so I'll do it as well.
Great segue.
I was just gonna thing I was gonna say, it kind of takes me back to like when you're a teenager or like a young person and you decorate your room as to how you want it to be, like posters. You put posters up.
It's something to do with, it's like you want to control reality.
Your space.
So like something about control and safety.
I think when I was, because that's a really good point. When I was a teenager, I remember I was like super into actually when I was a little bit younger than a teenager, when I was like 10 or probably like 11 and 12, year 7, year 8, I was real into like heavy metal music. And
really that young?
So super into it. And I remember having like all the band posters there, because they're like real gory posters, it's real shock value. and yeah, like the feeling, like there's a real feeling, I guess, and that ties into I think with like teenage, like a rebellion. It's like, fuck yeah, look at me.
Sounds like.
Yeah, look at me.
I used to get back when United Video was a thing. They would have like old movie posters, but they were the proper like full size ones.
Yeah, that's dope.
And often you would find like a gem for like $1 or $2 because they're just going to throw them out.
Yeah, that was an epic.
They probably,
epic
I imagine there would be a market for those now.
Yeah, probably are.
Especially if you had it like framed. Yeah, exactly. I remember
the
my
person
sister
used to come and person used to come to my old work and buy the frames specifically to put posters in and then resell them for a profit. So
I remember my sister had a massive Titanic.
Yeah,
like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, that would be cool in its time.
yeah.
Still,
that was probably her. That would be a crush thing, you know. Everyone, I think most teenage girls had a crush on Leonardo DiCaprio in the 90s, early 2000s.
That's true.
I think I had a Taylor Swift poster in my room until the year before I met my now wife.
That's epic, man.
So,
that's nice.
Well, it was actually on there when she met me. So
Too Swift is
just a flex.
I'm actually a bit of a minimalist now. I don't. I don't really have. Other than I had that 1,000 stars trade me feedback on my wall, which I took down the other day.
Did you?
Yeah, I was just cleaning up my room and
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm up to like almost 7,000 now, so it's not really. I guess unless I had all of them up on there, but
keep it. You kept it though.
Yeah, just put it in my wardrobe. I think they stopped sending them to me after like 3,000 or 4,000, probably cutting costs.
Oh, I think they'd have milestones. It'd probably go 1 to 10K.
Yeah, but I'm up to like close to 7. I don't remember getting one from 6, and I don't even know if I got one from 5.
Yeah,
I think I got
but if
3
it's 10,
and 4.
then it's still to come.
I think that's cool though. Like, there's kind of like an achievement.
Yeah,
of, like,
yeah.
Your origin sort of story.
I get it, but again, that's the super rational part of my brain. I'm like, meh, whatever.
It's just
What's the function of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of function,
I was into it.
In my preliminary research, the general consensus seemed like before like 1900, so generally before then, the objects or items that were for sale were generally their use and value, thinking rationally, was like very apparent. They were just very functional, or more so functional rather than aesthetic. Only the very, very wealthy, rich people were involved in buying things just for fashion and flex that didn't really have a purpose.
Yeah.
And a lot of the articles attributed post-World War America, when it was like super wealthy, lots of wealth per capita, to
Which war? World War II.
World War II, yeah. That like niche of buying things for flexing, social flexing, kind of spread out into the middle classes as they got more wealthy.
Yeah.
And so that was the general trend, yeah. And after World War II, more items began to be sold, apparently, with a more fashionable angle rather than like a useful. So there was more like of a social flex aspect to them. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think? How much of what we want to collect and what we desire is like put onto us subconsciously somehow, you know?
Yeah, there'll be an element.
To what extent? Yeah, it's going to be a bit of both, but
yeah.
Well, because if we were to think about that a bit longer, I was thinking about like the iPhones. Obviously, it's a flex to have the latest one. It doesn't really do much more than the previous one, but I think that is also that chasing the social flex and the glamour has also kind of pulled the technology up anyway.
I think actually it'd be a way bigger flex if you're still using like an iPhone 7.
Yeah,
they look so
something
much
to
better.
that. Eh?
They look so much better.
There's something to that.
I don't mind this. See, I got the mini one, which is this could be collectible because they won't be doing that anymore. They didn't do a mini for the latest model. This is the second latest model, and they might not do it ever again. So this could become collectible. The last model to be mini. I think this looks way nicer than the one that has the Pro Max or whatever that has 3 lenses.
Yeah, I
still think that's uglier than just when it was just a single lens and it was way more discreet.
Yeah,
and I think in general, the iPhones peaked in design somewhere between the 5 and the 7, I think.
Okay,
and they've gone. I mean, they're still better. I think they still look better than Androids, but the way it used to be much more minimalist. I guess so. I'm drawn to minimalism, so I think most people would probably agree with me on that though. That the iPhones used to look better, and they used to have some the nicer touch, like that were like metal frames and stuff.
Which, they've always been some symbol of aesthetic, though, haven't they?
Yeah,
they've come to represent that. Yeah.
Sorry, there's like a full detailed question. I think trying to answer what you're saying. I'd like to think that a lot of what I like purchase, or say for example, like clothes you wear, is it like a? Sorry, is anyone else hearing that like a staticky sound, or is it just me?
Just you.
Just you.
Okay, never mind. No worries. Like what you wear sort of is kind of like, like I said, reflection of your personality.
Yeah.
But I think there are things that are like timeless that just pass the test of time. So for example, like most people would probably own like a white pair of sneakers, or just your standard like a pullover hoodie or something, or even just like plain t-shirts. Like they'll just pass. But then often like people are real into like the shoe sneaker culture.
I don't get that at all.
And it's like it's kind of cool, I guess, to an extent. It's your own thing, but would I be collecting it for the sake of collecting, or if I liked it, or is it because I want to like show off like status? I think it's more now.
I definitely did that at high school.
Yeah, I don't really care so much. Like it's not a status thing.
No,
like it's nice to look like if you buy like a nice watch. Some people collect them because they retain value or whatever. So it's like, no, I just like it because every now and again I like to check the time and it looks nice. It's not. I don't look at it as like I've got a real nice watch.
I still think. Well, again, I can only speak for myself. There's still like a deeper element where, your primary reason for buying is because you like it, but you do also want to look good.
Signal.
Like I say, like I feel great when I put on and I do it very rarely. I went through a phase where I started doing it at parties. Put on a dress shirt and a tie. And it drew attention to me because like, what's this guy, crackhead doing here?
The tie never matched the shirt. That's probably
Well, but
epic.
That's I think there's something to that as well, right? It's like, I actually did this once, but I saw, that's a little bit of a tangent. I saw LeBron James do it, wearing a dress with shorts,
dress shirt.
Sorry, like a suit with shorts. And I was like, that's a dope idea, and I did it at Jose's wedding. Mainly because it was a hot day, but I thought it looked dope.
Sick.
But it's a little bit of a like contrast. I think there's something, and I mean, if you look at some of these designs out there, like Yeezys and stuff, they look like, especially like those UGG boot ones, like that looks whack as hell to me. But some people love it. So I think there's something too, like pushing boundaries. Probably because, again, a primary function of pushing boundaries is drawing attention to yourself. So, I think there's certainly an element of that where it's like, I buy it because I like it, but it also makes me feel good. And, and I think other people, we all want validation, don't we? To some degree.
Yeah, I think it becomes easier as you get older because you tend to have more discretionary income.
Yeah.
Whereas I couldn't fathom, I don't know what is it now? Like, say a pair of sneakers, for example, like you're looking at what, 200-300, sometimes up to like 1,000, couple thousand. So can you imagine like working as a teenager, like how many hours you'd be doing part time really just for one thing like that? Whereas now it's expensive and it could be excessive, but it's somewhat more attainable. Easily
disposable income definitely has a lot to do with collecting and consumer culture in general anyway. I suppose that consumer culture as we know it probably also came after the war, it seems,
probably,
when everyone just has all that disposable income, because before like 1900 ish, obviously everyone was encouraged to live way more frugally, and there's like no flair, like what's the word, no showing off almost for the majority of people. It was much more like
upon, like
live frugally.
Modest, modest.
But that was by not by choice.
Yeah, I also think, again, it's maybe a little bit of a tangent, but people go the opposite way, and this is me, I think, to a certain extent, but like dress less for me. Like, you know, I think I'm well known for not wearing pants in winter. I wear shorts in winter when it's freezing.
We had one of those at our school as well.
Right. I can't remember if I did it at school, but it's more a thing.
No,
now,
I used to wear the long pants.
Yeah, so it's more of a thing as an adult.
Yeah, I've the same. It's just more comfortable.
But I was thinking more like Mark Zuckerberg. You know, the classic, like, that's, if you think like that tech industry, like office jobs, you think of suit and tie, and he's like nerd. He's the I think he used to rock sneens, didn't he?
Yeah, he sneened before it was cool.
So did Steve Jobs, didn't he?
Sorry, Steve Jobs, probably the OG with the
turtleneck.
And those terrible white sneakers. What are they, New Balance or something?
Nah, that's
cool.
That's
now.
a statement, because people do that specifically.
So it's like, again, I think that's a form of rebellion. It's like, oh, I'm in this industry full of stuck up people. This is me, this chill dude who's been on this hippie tour around India and stuff, done all sorts of drugs, and you know, counterculture. I think there's an aspect of that. Actually, one of my favorite examples of that, this is a super random one, is as in, I don't know, I think you've seen it, I don't know about you, Sicario, the movie.
No, I haven't seen it.
I've seen it a while ago.
Okay,
but yeah.
like the one of the main characters, Matt Graver, which is Josh Brolin, the actor. He's one of like the main military dudes in it. And I feel like this is cool because they actually, the way the camera focused on this bit, it's like someone really thought about this. But yeah, they're like sitting in like the serious military meeting, like planning this military operation, and they're all like in military clothing and whatnot, and he's like sitting there in jandals, or thongs as they would call it in America. And it's like, that's again like that classic example of like, this is a serious environment, and here's this dude, and they like zoom in on him just like chilling there in shorts and jandals, and like before he's about to like embark on a massive military operation. I was like again, that's I like that shit, like that idea. Another great example was from The Big Short.
The guy playing Michael Burry. Yeah.
So Christian Bale, the actor, where he's again working in like a hedge fund or whatever. Again, that classic suit and tie, probably more than any other industry. And he's like, again, shorts and jandals, and like listening to heavy metal in his office. I
don't know much about him, but I don't know if is that dramatized.
Could be, but I like that idea. I think I like that idea of going the opposite way, I guess, is rather than like trying to push the boundaries by buying the flashless watch, you go the opposite way. I was like, no, I'm going to dress slack, chill. And
it comes with a self-confidence in you to do that, eh?
It's like where comfort meets the line with like looking good. It's like,
but I think like that look, like I like that look anyway. I love the look of shorts and jandals, as you can probably tell. I think it looks way better than wearing shoes and shorts.
Yeah,
I think it looks.
Speaking of wearing shoes and shorts. Oh no, he's called me out.
Speaking of backing yourself, because that means like you back yourself, obviously, to do any of that and go into a situation and just be like completely opposite to what is expected of you.
Yeah, I think exactly.
It's a power play.
I think it's a power. Yeah,
alpha. As opposed to the collectors, to people who collect, being like notoriously beta. Well, it's a good segue back in. I think. Oh damn! What was I going to say?
Collectors.
Do you think? Yeah, and sometimes the collection itself, what you decide to collect, is like an attempt to stand out. Sometimes some people pick it as like,
of course,
look. Yeah.
For some people, if not all, I think again in all cases, I think there is a small, varying degrees of that.
Like if you don't have anything of like you can offer that's cool about yourself, you're like, at least I can spend money and accumulate cool stuff.
That would be an extreme case.
And people attach that to me.
Yeah, that would be in an extreme case. And I think, we all know or can think of like examples of that, like the ultra wealthy rich dude who's constantly buying the latest. I mean, you can argue that's Tate, right? Like, ooh, Bugatti,
He seemed confident as well, though.
Jay Leno.
But have you seen videos of him when he was young?
Yeah,
he looked like he looked like an absolute nerd.
Yeah,
wearing those stupid little nerdy glasses. not like proper glasses like these, the nerdy ones.
The classic ones.
Rectangle shaped ones.
Damn, I used to wear those when I was young.
Yeah, it was super nerdy.
It was the 2000s.
And he was super scrawny. So maybe, that's a deep even though he clearly is a confident character, that could be a deep overcompensation for his young. Because I think what you're saying, you're going on about people, staying children or whatever. Where did I hear it? Somewhere I heard it in the last day or two. Actually, I heard it on like a background version of Kenny vs. Spenny, where they're like doing a commentary of it, and like they're explaining why Spenny is the way he is. He's super like neurotic, anxious, and the dude said, his name is Sebi. It's gonna get confusing. Sebastian was saying, like, we're all reflections of what we were as children. He's like, Kenny was like, didn't get validation as a child, and so that's him as an adult now, constantly seeking validation, and and it was that resonated with me. So that I think even if you are super confident right now, in the case of, we say, like Andrew Tate, and I'm not saying this definitively, just speculating, it could be a massive overcompensation that he, for. And another example of that, a good example, I think, Wilt Chamberlain, I think it was, famous basketball player, reckons he's had sex with 10,000 women or something, some absurd number. Someone did the maths on it and it doesn't check out, but he would have had sex with a lot of women. But he was like incel as a teenager, so as so even though he can overcorrect and fix it, he still can never get over that childhood thing, that
needs to do
inferiority
some
complex,
deep self work.
So I think there is that element in all of us, is that we are a reflection of who we are as a child.
What do you guys think about like generally in the prolonged like adolescence that gets mentioned occasionally, of especially men, but I suppose it's all adults, and collecting carry is a symptom of that, I think.
Theory.
Hardcore collecting.
I've got a good theory about that. I think, and this is becoming more apparent as we get older, I don't think that you're always a child. I think everyone is always a child. Yeah, of course we take on adult responsibilities and whatnot to varying degrees, but it's the classic case. We all know that Joe Rogan clip, right, where one day he goes to the supermarket and he gets called sir, and he's like, what? I'm a sir now? Like, I'm a kid. Like, but someday you're no longer a kid, but you are a kid. You're just always a kid. I think we're always, I don't think it ever goes away.
Like, if you go to a playground that has a flying fox, it's just like that desire to like,
I want to ride a flying fox. It feels taboo to go and play on it.
Yeah.
But it's the same as like I get on so well with my nieces and nephews because I feel like I relate to them more than I relate to adults, because I'm just still a big kid.
Yeah, maybe it's natural. Maybe it's a natural result of all that disposable income. We're not forced to get responsibilities and which makes you grow up.
I think it's days. Still like you can take on these responsibilities. I mean, I can only speak for myself.
But you're not forced. You're not going to take on as many as you would if you were forced to get a job.
But I still think we all like, and I think I see this. Maybe a good example of this is like I've seen it at family events, especially after there's a few drinks into the adults. You see the child coming out of them. And these are, I'm like talking about my parents and my uncles. They've had very serious adult lives, but get a few drinks into them and all of a sudden you see they're, acting like kids again. Yeah. So I think you can take on all these adult responsibilities, but I still think for most of us, again, I can only speak for myself, you're still that just kid.
Maybe the acting like the act of being an adult is an overcorrection, and somehow from a childhood, like you were saying before. You want to act like super mature because you didn't
because
feel
when
that way as a kid.
Remember when you're a kid and you're like, I can't wait to be an adult. You think like, I
wish I was a kid again.
It'd be the same line people who didn't get enough love or girls as a kid. They'll be like, I can't wait to be an adult. I'm going to have sex with so many girls. Yeah. And you overcompensate. Yeah, so it could be the same thing.
But that's it. Like, even if you just have a normal, I think I had a relatively normal childhood. Maybe not in terms that wasn't the biggest pickup artist. But and I'm going back to like younger when that wasn't even a thing, like 6, 7, 8, 10, I can remember thinking, I just can't wait to be an adult, and like thinking you can have like do whatever you want and swear and watch bad stuff on the internet, whatever. You just like, and smoke and stuff. You're like, man, like I can't wait to be an adult. Like it's gonna be so sick. But then, yeah, like you become an adult. Again, I can only speak for myself. I was like, geez, actually, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate my life, but as I say, there's still, I just still feel like a big kid. And I'm probably more of a big kid than the average person. I'm happy to admit that. I'm more childish than the average adult. But I still think in most adults, you'll find that there's varying degrees of, I mean...
Definitely. I think everyone can relate to that.
I think
it's kind of sad.
Maybe some are ashamed to admit that.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I guess like that's the thing is that is probably like I think you kind of alluded to is that it's a societal expectation that we just become adults and we act differently. We don't do childish things anymore. But is there actually anything like hardwired into our brain that flicks that switch, or is that just a societal? That's a societal.
I wonder if it's a societal thing or generational, like because our parents and grandparents had a harder life, like I think in general.
I've seen the kid come out as that, and my parents, as they when you have these family events, and I guess when you drop all the baggage of everyday adult life, I think like that's when it comes out. So when you're at the Christmas party or whatever, and alcohol doesn't have to be involved, but that's certainly it's rocket fuel,
lowers the inhibition.
Yeah, exactly. And when people are not worrying about paying the bills and the rates going up and the cost of living and all this stuff, you start joking around and like classic one. I'm sure probably you guys can relate, like farts. It's still funny.
Always
it's still
classic.
It's still a thing with people. Like my parents, or more
farts are nature's punchline. I like to say.
Yeah, so it's like that's like as childish as it gets, right? Like you do a fart and everyone starts cracking up, and like these are my 70-year-old mother still finds that stuff funny. So I think it's a societal thing, expectation, pressure, and whatever that's so deeply like.
Ingrained,
thrust upon us.
Oh yeah,
where it's just like, one day you become an adult and you just stop. Like if you think, when was the last time? When did you stop playing on a playground? No one told you to stop playing on a playground. At some point, you just feel like,
maybe it's more frowned upon because generally like the whole
so
children vibe.
But think of anything like a child, like a childish activity, whatever.
Jumping on a trampoline.
Yeah, and like that's it.
Picking a nose and eating it.
You probably
I saw my nephew do that the other day.
That's
6-year-old.
You'd probably get like it'd be like if you went and bought a trampoline for yourself as an adult, which that's actually I'll definitely get one if I have a property of some land.
Yeah, you should get one here.
Trampolines is dope. I always got one. One of my nephews has got one and it's dope. I love
just
trampolines.
To lie down and look at the clouds, man.
Yeah. But
that sounds so lame.
But people would probably think that you're weird if if you're at whatever social gathering with a bunch of serious adults, like, I'm buying a trampoline. Like,
do you guys reckon? Do you guys reckon then if there's any kind of trend either way that it's either encouraging us to all be society in general encouraging more to be childlike as time goes on?
I think there's a real weird. Paradox. I think paradox might be the right word for it, where I think there is encouragement for it, but then there's also
stop being stupid.
Yeah, there's conflicting messages. There's a contradiction.
There's an example, like a recent one, an article came up, like on a plane, teenagers, I think flying from a school, I think this was to Kuala Lumpur or something from Australia, doing like handstands in the aisle. And it's one of those things, it's like, well, that's kind of like impressive and entertaining when you boil it down to it, but also it's like it's kind of reckless and stupid.
Yeah.
So half, like if you're looking at comments, half the comments are like, man, just like good on them, just having fun, like allow boys or teenagers to be themselves. And I was like, man, it's dangerous. You could flick someone in the face with your foot. It's gross, like putting your feet and I see both sides of it, because at the same time I'm like, I still feel kind of like a kid or a teenager, but then I also see things like that teenagers are doing now, which I'm like,
yeah,
I probably would have done myself then, but I also look at it like, man, it's
there's a fine line. I think that's one of I think the things that is true of being an adult is, when we're talking about harmless fun, playing on a trampoline and on a flying fox, that doesn't harm anyone. If we think about some of the reckless behavior that we might have done as teenagers or children, I can personally, I used to love throwing stuff on people's roofs. It doesn't actively harm, but it's you're inflicting and encroaching on someone else's life.
Yeah, we used to come over to my when I was living at home with my parents and throw like little pebbles of stones on the roof to like announce he's arrived.
I think recklessness though itself is associated with being a kid. So
so I think that's a key thing.
Reckless, but you can't afford to.
As an adult, you recognize like, it's not acceptable for me to do things that infringe on others.
Yeah, well, other people have less patience when they see you as a fully grown adult.
And that's fair.
Which is not, it's a bias because the exact same thing if a 6-year-old was doing it as opposed to an adult was doing it, they'd have a completely different reaction. I don't think it's fair.
You've got cognitive ability and understanding.
So you reckon they're like, he just doesn't know any better. It's fine.
I think there's a scientific thing with kids where they're like basically just probably over dramatized hyperbole, but kids are like basically psychopaths until like the age of 8. Like they don't know right and wrong. Again, I say it's not the right term for it. But, like you think kids cheat in board games, right? I see this so much with nieces and nephews. They don't understand that it's wrong to cheat in games. It's something that gets picked up. There's like this is scientific. It's picked up somewhere around the age of 8, where children actually start learning right from wrong. So I do think there is a difference, and whether that's a physical change in your brain or just from being taught, educated, I think it's reasonable to expect that an adult should know right from wrong in some of these like clear cut situations. Like it's not right to throw stuff on people's roofs. As a child, you're not, or a teenager, you're not thinking about other, you're very selfish and you don't, you're just not, I don't know how to, it just makes sense in my head. I can recognize that's not the right thing to do you probably know it's not the right thing to do as a teenager, but you're way more reckless, and that probably is a brain thing, right? Because brain's not fully developed until 25, so there is probably just that whatever frontal lobe or whatever isn't
connected up yet.
As well as it where it can be like, actually this looks like fun. It is fun, but I won't do it because it's infringing on someone else's life.
What do you guys reckon about when I say nostalgia? What comes to mind? Is it like a useful thing, or is it just
it's a double-edged sword? I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys get this, but I'll just randomly every now and then get like massive waves of nostalgia. One day I'll just wake up in the morning and and you just like taken back to like high school or something, and you just like start rehashing out all these memories. And it's very, and I think possibly like the translation for nostalgia is something like bittersweet, because it is like, it's like there's a part of you where it like hurts, like, I want to live this again.
The etymology I thought was I think it's like home pain. I think it means
so something like that. So it's like there's part of it where it's like it's a good, it's bittersweet. It's like it feels good and it feels bad at the same time because you can't have it again. But it's still,
or you try to recreate it, but it's never going to be quite the same. I'm the same. Occasionally I'll get like a nostalgic like memory, or you start thinking about like experiences you've had. So you could take it like collecting. I don't know if when you collect PS2 games, do you collect them to play them again, or is it just
it doesn't
not mostly. I do, but not
because
a lot.
Like I have like memories of like playing, I don't know, let's say Crash Bandicoot, or Spyro, and it's like, I could easily like pick up a PlayStation, and just relive that memory. But once you've done it, it's like it's not the same.
It doesn't feel right.
So you can't. It's like, do I put all this time and effort into it, or is it a waste of like resources? same said for movies. Like if you watch a movie, like a lot of people, let's say every year, will watch the same Christmas movies because it's like nostalgia or whatever. I try and tend to like watch only new movies, but then every now and again it's like, man, I just feel like watching The Matrix or something, you know. It's like, yeah, I feel like watching an old TV show that. Yeah. But it's kind of like as you go, man, it's like I just don't have that time to like put into those things.
Yeah, it's something to be real careful about. You got to be real careful. You can go into it and enjoy it for a bit, but don't just like run away with it, and it's going to be a dead end. And I reckon it's super weaponized against us in terms of consumer culture. Nostalgia is definitely weaponized. Oh, maybe weaponized is a bit of an egregious term, but you know, like how many remakes are we? We're in a swarm of remakes these days.
Songs? I was actually
songs, movies.
Never as good, eh?
Yeah.
There's probably like one or two, I guess you could argue Lord of the Rings. I guess, just sequels different to a remake. But general sequels are never the same as the originals as well. There's the odd exception.
There's a handful of exceptions I can think of.
There's a few, but I think it's widely Fast and the Furious.
Nah, Fast 10's is it 10 now? I don't even know. I think I stopped watching after 4 or 5.
I stopped watching after it went from street racing to robbing banks and
that big safe or something.
Like that was the last one I watched.
Yeah, same. Like,
this went full retard. But it's more successful than ever. So but yeah,
man, it's a massive thing though. If you can scale it to a point where it's making enough money, like you're going to recycle the same things again and again.
Yeah, and I think that probably ties into that. There will always be, and I can give you one example of this where I've done it. Nav will know with Rugby Challenge. It's a computer game. They're up to the 4th edition, but it's still a terrible game. It's a little bit of fun. It's fun, but it's not like it's super like.
The mechanics just don't make sense.
It's super unrealistic, and it's basically just a patched version of the last game. Like it's hardly any different. But I'm still a sucker because I'm hoping that it will be a better rugby game, and it is. It's like 10% better. It should be way better for that. For like the $80 I paid for it or something,
and the 5 years in between. And
the online's terrible. Like the servers are super laggy. It's like it's not worth the price, but it's a little bit better. So I'll still pay that because I want to play the best possible rugby game.
Classic example is like FIFA. Like people just
Madden as well.
Yeah, like Madden. All those games.
There's not for nostalgia though, is it? It's you kind of get hooked in.
So what I wanted to say is that there's always going to be a target. Yeah, this audience of people for varying reasons who will buy, even like, so in the case of a movie, if it's like a nostalgic thing, a remake, people will probably read the reviews and be like, oh, it's just not the same. But there's just like that little bit of hope inside you that it will be. And so there will always be suckers who will buy
it's almost just like seeing the character again is like all you need. It's like the bare minimum.
Kind of gigs it like when Toy Story 4 came out. It was like...
Yeah, it had been quite a while.
Yeah. And
it was playing on the nostalgia for sure.
Definitely it's a nostalgic thing. I think it depends what it is.
I think we should probably... I think everyone, myself included, probably needs to maybe lean away from it a bit more. I think we're just getting... It's getting a bit much, and I don't think it's... Because, with the etymology of the word being home, it's like not... It's not moving forward.
Yeah,
it's my favorite boy, Terence McKenna, says like this was in the 2000s. Like we're living in an age of a crisis, like an epidemic of replication or something. There's like less and less originality, and it's just rehashing old stuff. And it's like I think it's a form of I don't know, mental like pussiness. It's like it's just so easy. It's like a cop out. It's like so easy. It's like I don't have to think. It's just relying off past thinking almost and enjoyment.
I don't listen to the radio very often, but I feel when I have recently, most of the songs are just remixed.
A lot of them,
it's just becoming more of a normalized thing, and I don't know if surely we're not going to run out of ideas in the creative space.
No, and I think you just have to look.
Well, it's less of a risk, isn't it? If you know,
it's
like a guaranteed
in business.
Yeah,
but it's better. It's easier to copy than it is to. Yeah. And I'm happy to admit that that's what I did in business. I look for a product that I can see that is already selling successfully, and then I copy it and I try and make it. And so to be fair, and this is what happens in most cases, is that if you're a savvy businessman, creator, whatever you want to call yourself, you take a product that is decent, you see there's a demand for it, and then you make it better. And there's that whatever that classic quote out there or something that like, what is it, like imitate? No, not the imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. It's something like theft is more. Oh, Jesus, not coming to me. It's like the idea of copying is
easier.
No, I think it's saying copying is better. It's like harder. No, yeah. So that's kind of a contradiction, then, isn't it? I'll try and I'll see if I can.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, there's I don't know. Yeah,
but in terms of nostalgia, as an example of like a movie that it's easier and more of a sure thing to just
if you see that there's
already
demand for this product, then it's much easier than coming up with a novel idea. And so often like you see novel ideas flop hard because that's it. There's nothing to back to. You can't be like, oh yeah, I know people love this, and I can't think of any movies off the top of my head, but I know the director. You may or may not be familiar with him, M. Night
Shyamalan.
Yeah. He's the maker of Signs. I believe I've read that he's pushed some boundaries with movies and they're not well received. But that's so that's the risk in genuine creativity, is that you might love it and it might have taken genius, but the world might not be ready for it.
I don't know if we can expand on it anymore, but sometimes expand off this, but sometimes the worst games or worst movies end up becoming, in terms of collecting, becoming the best, the most collectible things, because because it's so few basically, or because it was so. If it's in terms of a movie, I suppose it's because it's so special in a bad way.
Yeah, that kind of reminds.
It's still special.
You might. I mean, I don't know if you've all seen the movie The Room.
Yeah.
That's like the cult.
Special in a bad way.
Yeah, it's like well known because it's so poorly executed.
Yeah,
but it's kind of humorous. So I think the director, he filmed it, had a decent amount of money, wanted to make a movie, turned out awfully, but he was so serious about it that it just became like a kind of like a running joke.
Oh, right,
but
actually.
And then they made a I think it was the Franco brothers remade a movie about the original movie and how it was made, and
and that was successful, was it?
That was that's an interesting point though, a little bit different, but there are movies that were mad flops when they came out in the cinema, which I think is not as big of a deal as it is anymore with streaming. Some movies just go straight to streaming. But back in them talking, so one of them was Donnie Darko. That's a super popular film. It's a cult film. I think that's probably people. And to be fair, it's the feeling I get when I watch it is takes you back to being a teenager. I think there's a lot of people who can relate to that feeling. I remember watching that first year or so out of high school, feeling super lost in the world and feeling so drawn to that movie because that's similar to what Donnie Darko was. But that was a flop when it came out in the cinema. But I say now it's one of those, I think cult film was the right term for it, where it's it's quite popular overall, and there's a hardcore group of people who absolutely love it. I think it was the same in Fight Club. I think it was the same. It was a mad flop in the cinema. And again, it's a cult film now. Red Pill taking it and they're like, yeah, Fight Club, and quoting it all the time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that, and maybe you could, argue that, if you come out with an original piece of art, that might happen. It might be a flop at the time, but 20 years down the line, people might, because I guess that's it. Culture changes. Yeah. People's opinions change.
You might just be a bit too forward.
Yeah, there's culture. The classic case of, we've all heard that about geniuses. They're ahead of their time. They had a great idea, but the world wasn't ready for it. I think there's some really good examples of that. I can't think of one off the top of my head where someone has had a product that was adopted 20 years later. At the time they made it, people are like, we don't need this, but yeah, then there was a demand for it 20 years later because of whatever an advance in technology.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think where I was going with that, the copying thing being like even, and so I guess it really depends on how you apply it. But I think it's the idea. I think I've like read this. If you know, obviously with the Mona Lisa, how that's like there's lots of copies of it because it's the, you know, that most famous painting in the world or whatever. So there's to be able to copy that is, I guess you could argue, either equally as impressive or as more impressive than the original if they do like a great job of it. I think, do you grasp that? I think it makes sense in my head because if you think like when you're making an original piece of art, there might be like little tiny details that you didn't intend to put in, but somehow they just happen by quirk of whatever, a smudge of the hand one way or another. For you to be able to actually copy that in the same way actually requires like a skill. It's like the original art might have, say, something that was done accidentally, and then for you to be able to copy that in, you know, an almost identical way arguably requires more skill than the original. I think if that makes any sense. But again, that's only if you're going super specific. If you're just like you know, coming out with another streaming service that, you know, does all the same stuff as Netflix does, just with different shows, then that obviously doesn't require. I'm not saying it doesn't require skills, of course it does. But I think you get what I mean.
Yeah. What do you guys think about as well? Kind of touched on it, but like collecting as a form of identity. My personal prediction is that people's collections, or people who collect or identify as collectors, is going to grow as a proportion because I feel like more and more people are doing that. Like I said, as a point of difference about themselves, if they don't feel like they are interesting enough on their own. Or like amass this collection around them as a form of safety, and so people then identify them as the cool with the cool collection. What do you guys reckon about that? As a form of
I think with collecting, I think there's different ways to view it. So you can view it as collecting primarily for like investment purposes, like knowing, yes, there's a rarity to this thing, it's going to go up in price. Or if you just like the product, for example, like people who collect Coca-Cola stuff or Barbie dolls or whatever, it's like, they just like the thing. It's a status thing. I don't know, like flexing.
I don't even know if it's a status thing. I think it's just it's like a personality thing. It's like this is me because I don't feel like confident enough.
Compensating for something else.
And I think it's going to get worse in the future because worse is like, I mean, it might not be a bad thing necessarily. But
it's going to be more prevalent.
Yeah, because people don't.
I
developing
think it's better. It's better than like do something terrible like becoming, because that's so often what can happen with these outcasts, isn't it? And I say that as an outcast myself. You could go down a dark avenue and be like, society's terrible. I'm
gonna shoot a school.
Yeah, we know. Like in the most extreme cases, that's it. There's these misfits who can't fit in. They can't get a girlfriend, and they really want one, and they don't have and then. It's much healthier that they become obsessed with like collecting Pokemon cards, which is a benign hobby. Yeah. And as opposed to becoming super jaded and like
Sigmund,
or like suicidal would be another form. Like I'm lost. I can't get a girlfriend. I have no friends, so I'll kill myself. Well, it's much better if they find and that's it. They'll find the community in most cases after it, which is good. So again, that's another one of these deep human desires. We all want to be a part of a community. You've said it before, join a church or whatever. So for others, it will be the car collecting, the card collecting, the debt collecting.
Racking up debt. I collect debt.
So I think, I get it. You could look at it and you could say this is super unhealthy. Like they're using this as an escape from reality, but I think it's better than some of the alternatives, and I think you just have to accept I feel like I've accepted this about myself, is that I'm not going to live like the normal life that most people are going to live, and I'm comfortable with that, because I genuinely don't want to. And so there's obviously other people who take that to much further extremes, but if that gives them fulfillment, then I think that's okay, even though we might look at them and be like, geez, like, what a nerd, like, get a girlfriend, all this sort of stuff. So
yeah, I interesting point in the research that Sigmund Freud thought or believed that collecting was like a symptom of excess libido, which I don't think he thought of libido in like a bit more of a grand scheme, but energy, essentially, energy. But that's kind of interesting to think. It's like an overflow of like potential energy that you're not getting out somewhere else, so you can put your effort into collecting things. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Kind of seems to check out a little bit.
I understand that. I feel like that could probably be like applied to anything. Any sort
of. If you're
thinking
thinking about it as energy, it could.
If you think, and again, I can say in reference to myself, becoming obsessed with, in my case, sports betting. It required like a level of obsession and persistence outside the norms of what the average person might be willing to go to. And again, there's other people. Again, I'm not trying to make myself sound like I'm a genius or like super committed. But if you think of Nikola Tesla, like, dude was celibate because he's so focused. He's a genius. He's so focused on his work. So it requires a sacrifice.
That's kind of that's kind of brings it back to what I reckon about people collecting with like excess disposable income, but like, and then the prolonged childhood. Seems like back in the day, maybe it might just be looking back through rose tinted glasses or glasses of some kind. But when you're forced to go to work, like, you then don't have any extra libido to be collecting. So it seems like, and then also with it like being like as a form of character, like I collect because that's my personality. Say 100 years ago, these people wouldn't have had that free time to feel like they would have developed themselves not by choice but forced. They would have become a carpenter and being really good at because they were forced into it.
So you could argue, and especially if you can, which a lot of people do, they either turn it into a business, buying and reselling or making YouTube videos or whatever, which is super good, right? If you can do that. And then you'll learn another set of skills because you'll become a businessman or an influencer or whatever, which is not a great term, but you'll become a creator and learn another set of skills, and then that might open up other doors. But I was going to say, you could argue then that it's a sign of how far society has come that so many people do have this excess libido and time.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a symptom of like excess disposable income, excess time.
So you could argue that
lack of responsibilities.
That's a positive thing. You could argue it's a negative thing as well, I guess. But
I think you said it best when you said the word benign. It's like benign. It's like it's like. It's like meh.
I think
it's like you could be doing something epic with yourself, but you're collecting. It's like it's not hurting anyone.
I think it's also viewed more as like a passive thing. So if it's like investing. You put the work in now, then your investments will pay for themselves. When you collect, there's initial. It's kind of like dopamine hit. Like you've got the thing. You've got what you wanted. Put it up on a shelf. Now it's there whenever you want to admire it.
Yeah, and there's also like the thrill of the chase, finding a bargain. But and it's kind of when you have it, I suppose if you're conscious about it, it's kind of nostalgia on demand. Like I can pick up a favorite game, I often do, and look at it for just like flick through the case for like a minute or so, and I'm like, that just feels good. It's like a hit. It's like a drug. I just go, makes me feel good. Put it away. That's all. And I don't often play it because it's a bit of a hassle to set it all up and play. But it's like kind of like a drug on demand. I feel like that's some nostalgia today.
I think as you were saying, you could be like doing some epic shit. I think, again, it's probably one of these things, social norms that's deeply ingrained in us, where it's like there's an expectation that you should be like doing something meaningful, or something purposeful,
or even manly comes to mind. Collecting like being surrounded by like Pokemon stuff and like a guy in a room is like it's not very manly.
It feels childish.
Yeah,
but yeah, say if you really think about it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But yeah, I think that's just one of those societal norms. Where it's like, grow up, like join the military or something, like serve your country, like do something useful with your time. But yeah, if you really break it down, it's like, well, you know, like
it's it's
why
benign.
do you need to do, why do you need to do that? And we're probably all victims of that, like of doing that, guilty of doing that, like looking at something like, geez, look at this, what a joke.
A lot of times, apparently, in interviews with people who are collecting, they'd say it had a lot to do with legacy. So, like, either collecting, amassing it for a monetary value, and then passing it on to children, or sometimes you open up a museum, or like if it's a big enough, crazy enough collection, you know. So I think legacy has something to do with it, and that would kind of make sense. Like if you're back in the day, you know, you have a legacy of like of money for your children, or a house, or whatever, or a career you can pass over. But now I suppose you could have a legacy of amassing a collection from around the world, you know, for people or for your family in the future.
Yeah.
So legacy, I think, might have something to do with it. I imagine most collections you'd want to keep in the family or keep somehow after you're gone.
I think my family has like jewelry, for example. Like a lot of people pass down like their grandmother's ring to give to your fiance or
like an big in Indian culture. I
think.
It's
a huge thing.
Give it at the next wedding. The child will inherit a ring from that's been passed all the way down.
I can imagine there'd be many like collections that would die at like the estate.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I've collected.
But you guys haven't inherited any, or your parents didn't inherit any collection of any kind.
I remember no. I did get this crappy watch that was from my granddad. It's long gone now.
Right.
It wasn't sold it. No, I don't know. I think it just lost it. I don't think it was worth anything. It was just it was gold, but awesome. I doubt it was gold. Like gold plated, like the lowest percentage.
Yeah, I think I'm going to inherit my dad's. Shitty to me collection. There's probably it might be worth money. There's heaps of old beer cans and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, interesting.
No, one thing my dad does have.
Do you want them? $100.
No. My dad does have.
Is it liquid in them?
No.
Then I don't want them.
My dad has his father's and my granddad's war medals on the wall. So that's a common one.
Yeah, it's a cool legacy thing.
Yeah.
That just makes me think. Because it is like your identity sort of trying to pass down. Yeah. And so example from that, I don't know if you've gone to like an old rugby rugby like hall that, you know, they often put up like all their old jerseys or like all the old team photos and stuff. And it's like, you're part of that thing culture going forward.
Yeah,
like you're
something bigger than yourself.
Continuing. Yeah,
it was the same with high school. Although I don't care for it anywhere near as much as they did. When you're at high school, you thought like you're going to represent the school for your whole entire life because you like buy into that culture and and like form
it's culty in that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's form as a cult. Yeah, and it's like a form of like for some people collecting there, they give you like badges and stuff and trophies and all of that, and it's like you feel like you're gonna
and in that environment that's worth something, even if it's just worth status. Like admiration or status. Yeah, and as soon as you leave, it's not really.
Yeah, not really. The grand scheme of things.
Because then you realise everyone else from all the other schools also got bullshit badges for nothing.
It's pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Another thing, like thinking of collections as an example, which it kind of actually makes me feel a bit sad, is like Burger King were known for having all their like retro old like 50s posters and signs and like even like the seats and the whole setup was like.
It's like diner.
Yeah, like real old school. Now it just feels so
modernized.
Like modernized, cut and dry. Like,
yeah, I don't know why. I wonder why they felt that was a good idea to do that. Because I feel like that would only become more popular because it would stand out the more as time goes on.
Yeah.
If they had stayed with that old, because I remember they had like the jukebox and everything. And there was like neon signs on the wall. It was dope, and there was all sorts of like American artwork, old school. And, like.
It's true.
I think that
it must make sense. There's no way like they have That must have made financial sense.
Yeah,
If there's
There's
anyone
no
from
way they
Burger
did that
King,
for no reason.
anyone in Burger King that wants to reach out
that dude
to
who's
us,
worked there forever, surely.
Let us in on this.
reach out to us. We got some ideas we can give you.
Yeah, but one
Or
business
sponsor us.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe that's it, right? They might have just not thought about it. They might have been like the franchise sold or whatever, and they're like, oh, we'll just do renos because it's some like,
or not. Maybe it's like not a long term thinking enough.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like some dudes like, oh, we just want like a nicer, warmer building or something, and more like, and it's just like didn't really think about it. I'm sure though. I know there is with McDonald's. There's a couple of real old McDonald's still standing around the country. There might be one or two Burger Kings that are still existing, and they will probably, like, as I say, that could grow and like a cult status. It could be like a tourist destination. Oh, we go to this because it's
KFC did that when they had their old school like red and white striped buildings, and then they moved to the new modern like red.
Yeah,
it's like Papa Nui when we were at high school.
Yeah. Sick, like the glass like windows.
Look at you guys getting nostalgic about old fast food. It's literally anything, right? But it just goes to show you can be nostalgic.
Yeah, one place that does that well. I don't know if you've been there or not, Diner 66, but like that's like what, well, it's like what Burger King used to be.
Yeah,
they've got like all the old school like American artwork, and Americana is what it's called, and like neons, like neon Budweiser sign, which is really cool.
There's a restaurant out, I think in Oxford, that do the same thing.
Right. So
called Lazy Days Diner.
Yeah, and they are on brand, but that's why I think maybe the word weaponized, nostalgia being weaponized against us, isn't so far fetched, because you don't have control about what you feel nostalgic for. Like you can't help it, and. Yeah, it has this like gut reaction, that like a powerful gut reaction that you can't control either.
There's probably some real good marketers, propagandists out there that understand this way more than we do. Sure. That are like, we know everyone wants to feel like they're 8 years old again, living there in the safety of their little childhood.
And you go, we're marketing to 50-year-olds, so just track it back to when they were 10, what was popular at the time.
Yeah,
collab with Sonic the Hedgehog, boom.
Yeah.
Done.
Sonic.
Done deal.
Yeah,
I'll buy this new
that's a big
Ferrari,
thing.
Sonic Ferrari.
That's a big
collab.
thing in America more so than here. Like all these collaborations with like a fast food place. I think it is one of the or was that done here with Sonic?
I don't know.
I think that is a thing.
It sounds believable.
Sonic, the actual fast food place. Yeah.
Oh no, see, that's what I'm thinking. But they probably have played off on the character as well. Mate, I can't guarantee that.
I mean, it's just a smart way to get out of your like if you're fast food, you can just get into video games and slap them together in one big advertising
I've
thing.
Sure seen that with other American collaborations. Whether it's specifically nostalgia, maybe not, but it is, I guess, like preying on. Like, we know people have good, like,
that's all marketing, preying on like people's insecurities.
Preying's a harsh word, but I've seen it
capitalizing on.
Yeah, like who was it? It might have even been Taco Bell. I've seen advertise it in the States at the moment. It's like collabing with Red Bull, where they like have done like come up.
It's just probably just businesses working with businesses to make more money.
Yeah, it's just marketing.
But I think
it's a branch of marketing nostalgia.
I think in some cases it'll be specifically nostalgia. If it's not nostalgia, it's still capitalizing on people having good feelings about another product. So and that's exactly it. Some people will have never gone to Taco Bell before, but they love Red Bull. So now they go to Taco Bell because they love Red Bull. And it's a similar.
Beware, be wary of the weaponization of nostalgia and marketing tactics.
I think another good example would be like McDonald's Happy Meal toys.
Yeah, that's
like lasted the test of time.
Yeah,
and there's people
collect. It's always a collect.
There'll be massive collections of those.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just always seen like if there was a movie that came out, or there'd be. I think one I remember having was all the Spy Kids 3D toys, like back when that movie came out. And they also collab with like the Olympics and like FIFA.
Yeah.
So it just becomes like a. Yeah.
That's the benefit of being just the king of, like, so that big. People would come to that. It's a win-win.
Yeah. And I think like overall, taking it back a little bit to about, as I say, we talked about like people having more time yeah, like these things aren't necessarily meaningful. If you want, well, you say meaning is subjective, but yeah, they look like it's not like a real pursuit. Like you're not Edmund Hillary climbing Mount Everest, which you could argue is pointless. But it seems it's a social norm. It's like that seems it's admirable. But I think overall, like perhaps like it's a good thing maybe that. Because as I say, maybe we're shifting to more acceptance that we are all just children forever, and maybe that's I think certainly to an extent is a good thing if you can feel comfortable expressing, these childish. As that, it sounds terrible, childish. It's got negative connotations, doesn't it? But whereas I guess traditionally the way that would take form and still will in many cases is like. You get the adult toys, right? So the classic is if you're a male, you get a fast car and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Which is a valid pursuit as well, as long as you don't do anything stupid in it. But I think it's probably a good thing, as I say, if there are a whole bunch of people out there, which I think there are, that want to express these childish desires and don't feel comfortable. If you now... it's becoming more acceptable. I think it's a good thing. Yeah,
I think it's a good thing as well. I agree. I think it's definitely happening. It's along with like the mental health acceptance. It's like it's okay to cry.
Good example.
And whether it actually is or not, I don't know if it's a closed case, but
I think it generally is.
The quote that comes to mind is the good times, which we're definitely good times create weak men, weak men create bad times, and bad times create strong men create
I know
good times.
I
feels like we're in the good times, weak men.
See that get thrown around a lot. I see the point that's being made there. Yeah, but
maybe that's why we feel a bit like, well, maybe me, I don't know about you guys, but feel a bit like meh about it when it's like benign. It's like it's not hurting anyone, but it's not like it's not admirable.
Yeah,
but is that just
like
conditioning?
It's not colonization.
You're not like conquering.
I get the point, and I can relate to that. Yeah, but going back to like that quote that I get seen thrown around a lot, and I understand the point that's being made, but I think if that were true, the progress of history would be a hell of a lot less linear than it is. I can only really point at one point in history where humanity went massively backwards, which was the Dark Ages, which came...
Well, just in that part of the world anyway.
Well,
just Europe.
China was... fair, like, and to be fair, then China did go back, because... then
it would be evidence for that. It's just every society
because
is kind
the
of
point that I was going to make
and
is that I can only think of like one or two examples throughout history where there's been a significant step backwards. If you think of the past 100 years, we're constantly going forward. Yes, we have wars, which you can say is a form of going, but actually they drive us forward because people want the best shit, which then flows over into everyday like appliances. Like if you think like of planes, like. The advancement of planes from from the
shout out planes
from the late 1930s or mid 1930s, and then especially in the 40s 50s when we went from propeller engines to jet engines. It's an exponential leap. So you say you could argue that war is driving us back, but actually, as I say, it's bad and it's bad, but it actually drives us forward. So I say, if you like look at the last since the Industrial Revolution, and even probably before that, like you can argue there's a little few blips on the radar where we go a little bit back, but in general we're like exponentially getting better. So I don't think that it's really true.
Okay, both could be correct though. You could have like a good times just more good than the bad times, and you go up, down, up. So there is a little bit of retraction.
Yeah, there might be a little bit of retraction, but I don't think it's. If you think about what
it's not a circle, it's like a
If you think about that, what that quote is saying, it's saying that easy times create hard times. Well, when were the last hard times? Yeah, really hard times. The last really hard times were probably the depression in the 1920s. So and again that to be fair is about 10 years, which is still a blip on that would only be like of an average human at that time, probably 70 years, would be whatever percentage,
You'd have to
a fraction of their life.
You'd have to have a good knowledge of like ancient civilizations, because what if the timescale that meme quote is kind of referring to is 2,000 years?
But then maybe it's so then it might not be relevant now. It might have been relevant 2,000 years ago, but I don't think it's relevant now, even if it was relevant one time. But I don't think it was. I don't, because as I say, I'm not a history expert, but to the best of my knowledge, and yes, you're right, it might have only been Europe specifically, but I guess Europe was the driving force of civilization at that point in time. If we think Rome and stuff, because Dark Ages came after the Roman Empire collapsed, and Rome was sort of the pinnacle of civilization. I mean,
Rome's often referenced with that quote,
right?
I think.
And so that's it. So yeah, they've taken like one example in history and been like, oh, this always happens. And yeah, that did happen in Rome to an extent. Yeah, they got complacent,
overextended, I think.
Yeah, and you see other quotes that are thrown in there as well, with like, oh, degeneracy is always like the sign of end times and stuff like that. And yeah, that could be true, but yeah, I think if you look at history, is pretty linear in my opinion. There's a few blips, but there's only a few massive blips. It's generally it's going up like this, and yes, you do get these here and there, but it's not going wah.
If you have like natural disasters,
and even then, rebuild back better.
It's one of those things. It's like like it can erase history. For example, like if we take the Canterbury earthquakes, because we had a lot of old heritage buildings, and it is quite sad. Like thinking about it. I don't know, it was kind of like an identity. Yeah. But then without that, you wouldn't have had strengthening of buildings and those sort of things.
Which is ultimately driving us forward.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the heritage buildings and nostalgic, but then you rebuild them with better shit that will survive earthquakes in the future. It's like, well, that's actually, again, it's a form of, like war, a bad event that actually drives us forward, because you're forced to like build better stuff.
Yeah.
And then that drives us forward. So, yeah, I'm not a huge. I get the point that's being made. Yeah, but
it's not a very eloquent point. So it's very simple to grasp.
Just that classic. You're like,
my bad.
It's always I say it's a meme quote as well, because it's always accompanied by like a Giga Chad.
Yeah, exactly,
like,
and a Tate followers sort of. It's thrown around that sort of community. Which, as I say, like you can argue, like
doesn't make it wrong, but it's
like there's merit to it.
Yeah. Doesn't make it right either. That's what I'm saying. Doesn't make it wrong or right.
Yeah, I take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. How are we doing for time?
We're an hour and 16 minutes, so probably draw towards a close.
Yeah.
It's easy to get carried away. You start going down memory lane.
And as I say, like, another way to actually make a point about that is, like we're saying, like 50, even 20, 30 years ago, especially 100 years ago, like you had to go and work in the coal mines as a man and all this shit. You didn't have all the spare time. So there were no really easy times back then, were there, unless you were in the 1%. Whereas now, there are. And so I guess maybe you could argue then that, we are coming into an unprecedented easy times that will cause this massive backward step. Maybe. I don't think that will happen.
Actually, that might be. So in terms of consumer culture, that might prop it up, as long as you have, if you're thinking about it conspiratorially, and from like 1% looking down and all our scum running around breeding and polluting.
As long as
we have just enough money to keep consuming, which is always the good 3% growth a year, buy shit, stimulus packages, buy. As long as they're doing that, then I suppose that might have figured out how to stop the good times creating weak men who are creating the bad times, and you can just almost have these slaves.
I think it's that
buying
of that. I think that really happened after World War II.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's wars that have happened since then, but none on a scale since. It's been in a historic period of peace by historic standards since World War II. I think, that was a real shift. Was a big shift after World War II. And potentially one of the reasons was if you think about like why wars happen and then happen again, it's always because one person, the winner of the war, like makes life hard for the loser. They're like, well, we won, now we'll take all your shit and enslave you and whatnot. That didn't happen at the end. You can argue it kind of did, like Germany was split up and whatnot. But in general, a good example is like Japan. Like Japan's like, and America didn't make life, they helped rebuild Japan and now they're allies. And they did that in Germany as well. And obviously you can, like Russia might not have done such a good job and on the other side of Berlin. But in general, America said, rather than, because that's what happened after World War One, Treaty of Versailles. We'll destroy Germany, we'll take all their land, massive repayments and all that, hyperinflation, all that shit. America's like, we won't do that. Instead, we'll just be happy with our victory and we'll help these guys get back on their feet, whether they were the bad guys or not, and also help England and the good guys as well, allies. And so I think it was a real change, a real shift in thinking, is rather than this constant cycle throughout history of winner takes all the other person's shit and then eventually they'll rebuild and get angry enough and come back. And so America's like, no, actually we'll put an end to this. We'll help these guys flourish. We'll give them a dose of freedom, and that generally has worked.
Seems like it's a win-win. It benefits the governments and the elite, and it benefits us as well.
I mean, it doesn't benefit the families that lost lives in war, but I see. I
mean, that's already happened.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, America could have been like, well, we'll occupy Japan and all, and like Germany,
enslave them.
Enslave them, take all their shit. But they didn't do that. And in fact, ironically, this is before our lifetime. But if you look up on the internet, people thought like Japan was going to be like what China is now. They were going to take over in like the 80s. Everyone was scared because they were like
the boogeyman.
Yeah, so like, if you think that happened in the space of like 40 years, even less, 35 or so, that wouldn't happen if America put their foot on their throat. Yeah, it happened that they recovered in 30, 40 years, and then they were rivaling America to become the superpower. Obviously, it didn't really happen.
Maybe that's a thing we might have to get into. Maybe we can talk about that in a future podcast.
Now they're taking L's from the reproduction crisis. What's it called?
How nations can
Japanification.
Right. That's a different topic, though.
Yeah, let's not get too. Too much of a
I think in general, I just think I think times just continue getting easier on average, and so I guess, as you say, you could argue that the past, since the Dark Ages, times have just always been tough, and so maybe that times in Rome were easy at the end, and maybe we were approaching that point again. As I say, you're right, I see that there's a lot of people love to reference the collapse of Rome as to our current time, but I'm skeptical. I think we're just so much more
resilient,
knowledgeable, interconnected as well. Like there's so many moving parts. Like
the only thing with that,
everyone needs everyone now, sort of thing. With
it's more global,
exactly.
But that means instead of like just Rome collapsing and China, India, Africa, all being all good, everywhere collapses. Yeah, no, I think that won't happen, because I think it's, if one part collapses, like if America collapses, as much as China won't say it on TV, that will then cause them to collapse. So it's in there. They're so like everyone's reliant on everyone. Like China gets a whole lot of shit from America. America gets a whole lot of shit from China. They need each other, so they're incentivized to prop one another up. Even as I say, they on TV, it'll never be said. But if you look at like the actual like economic numbers, the trade and all of that, you'll see like they're still doing trade at record numbers, sort of thing. And obviously, throw in a ton of other countries in there as well. So it's almost like, I guess it's like strength for numbers. It's like if one part collapses, another country will bail them out. Essentially, they're like, oh well, we can't have you collapse, so we'll help you get back up on your feet, because otherwise we'll collapse. So positive note to end.
I think we'll just wrap it up there. Sorry for the late tangent.
But we can. It can lead off into maybe.
It was all off of Good Times Creating Weak Men meme.
Yeah.
Oh well, it's all good.
Great meme though.
Yeah, times are getting easier, and enjoy them. Yeah. collect if you want to collect.
Ride the wave.
Yeah, don't feel the need to climb
And if it is
Mount
going down,
Everest.
just enjoy the way down. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, just catch the falling knife.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's wrap it up there.
Yep.
Bit of a longer one this time.
Go down surrounded by weeb girls, by anime girls, pillows.
Thanks for listening to the Friday Council. We will see you next time. Peace out.
Bye.